We welcome our viewers to another session. We welcome our viewers to another session of In Conversation with Sri Pratik Desai ji. Pratik Desai ji likes to speak or have conversations on topics related to Sanatan Dharma. He's very keen that the youth of this modern age gets a very clear idea of what is the true essence of religion and uh, and how we can relate to it in this modern world. And he also clarifies breaks many myths, totally based on the wisdom of the scriptures. So uh, we today we will speak to Pratik Desai ji on uh, some of the very common issues that we discuss amongst ourselves related to religion. Uh, Specifically today, with uh, devotees who are surrendered to Lord, the true devotees of Lord, are supposed to be taken care of by Lord, and when they are under the shelter of Lord, they should be very self-sufficient. Yet, why is it that uh, we find devotees suffer despite being surrendered to Lord? Why do devotees suffer? How do we reconcile it? So, Pratik ji, if you can lead the conversation on this topic.
Okay, all right.
Over to you.
Thank you, Rajiv ji, for the valid question. Especially the main purpose of people practicing spirituality is that they want to get free from suffering. But here we see that sometimes the reverse also happens. And
Yes.
there are many examples in the scriptures actually where devotees they have suffered to a great extent. What we are experiencing is just a bit of that experience. Like, for example, what Prahlad Maharaj experienced, what the Pandavas experienced. So many great souls they have actually experienced. Bhishma they have also experienced. So these are all great personalities who have, it seems that they have undergone some suffering. Although, according to scriptures, according to the uh, I would say according to scriptures, because everything is derived from the scripture. So the acharyas in the Vaishnava Sampradaya, when they scrutinize the scriptures, they come to the conclusion that all these great personalities who are completely dedicated and surrendered to the Lord, they do not have any suffering, but they are only, uh, even in spite of receiving that kind of um, suffering, which we may call it, it may seem like that, but in reality, what they are doing is they are showing at every step in their so-called suffering, apparent suffering, that they are always dedicated to the Lord, and they never stop remembering the Lord, and they never stop surrendering to the Lord. In fact, their remembrance, their absorption, and their surrender to the Lord will increase more and more. As this apparently, it may seem that they are suffering. In reality, they are not suffering actually. So, whatever the great Vaishnava acharyas they say that these race personalities they did not have any karma. So, although there is a description about Bhishma Dev as being a devta in the previous life, and then there is a pastime where he was cursed by one of the sage because he was the leader of the Vasus, and all these 8 Vasus they had stolen cow from a sage, and because of that, the sage had cursed all of them, but especially the leader, he had to suffer, he had to undergo more suffering because he was the leader of them. And in the next life, that Vasu became Bhishma, Pitama. So that is the version of the Karmakand scriptures. There are different scriptures in different modes of nature and with different emphasis also. But the bhakti scriptures, according to uh, the sattvic scriptures, there are six scriptures, six main Puranas in the mode of goodness, six in the mode of passion, six in the mode of ignorance. And we know, I think everyone will accept and agree that scriptures in the mode of goodness, they are the ones which are the ultimate authorities, because the scriptures in the mode of passion and ignorance, they generally do not yield to uh, the purpose of life. But especially goodness leads to one to question about the purpose of life. And in the state of goodness, one can realize the absolute truth. So that's why these sattvic scriptures, they state that Bhishma actually was a pure devotee of the Lord, and he was coming from Krishna's abode. So he had no karma. And they explain this contradiction by stating that there is eternal Bhishma who is in the spiritual world, who comes down from the spiritual world, and there is this Vasu in the previous life. And when he becomes, when it is mentioned in another scripture that he becomes Bhishma, it means that this Vasu in the next life, the soul of the Vasu merges in the body of the eternal Bhishma Pitama, who descends from the spiritual world.
So, does he lose his individuality? Because if you're merging, what about your own individuality?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So what happens? So this is a technical detail. I hope the audience will understand at least something of it. But this is not something which is a perspective of the Vaishnavas. This is something which is directly mentioned in the Puranas. So our great Vaishnava Acharya Srila Rupa Goswami, he has written one scripture called as Laghu Bhagavatamrit, which is basically the analysis of the Srimad Bhagavatam in a small form. Laghu means small. So basically, he has given he has provided, he has shared some essential truths from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And in that particular book that he has written, he has quoted many references from the different Puranas. So he quotes this as an evidence from, I think, one of the Puranas, probably it is Kurma Purana or Matsya Purana or Vara Purana. I don't remember exactly, but one of the Purana he quotes, and he says that in this Purana it is mentioned that when Lakshman was with Ram, Lord Ram, when he had appeared, and when they all went back to Ayodhya in the spiritual world, so the Shesh portion merged in the body of Lakshman. Because Shesh that we know, Sheshnag, the upholder of the universes. So he's basically expansion of Lord Lakshman. So that portion merged in Lakshman when he went back to the spiritual world of Ayodhya. And so this is a praman directly from one of the Puranas. And using this praman, Rupa Goswami explains that this is what happened when the eternal associates of the Lord come to the material world. And when we have some jiva who is becoming that personality in the next life. So there is also example of Nand Maharaj Yashoda Maiya, and there is the example of Devki and Vasudev. So these were all personalities who are actually eternally, they are the parents of Krishna, and they descend with Krishna when Krishna performs his pastime in the material world. But then there are jivas who become, like for example, Drona and Dhara became Nanda and Yashoda. It is mentioned in the Bhagavatam also. But at the same time, the Bhagavatam also states that Krishna is eternally the son of Nanda and Yashoda. Okay. So your coming to your question is that what happens to that jiva? Does he merge in that body? So see, there are different cases. There are two scenarios here. One is that generally these jivas, they are amshas of the original personalities, which means that they are expansions of the original personalities, which means that they are one and the same personality. So when they merge back, the amsha is merging into the amshi. Okay. So it's basically like, for example, uh, when Krishna is descending in the material world, we say that Krishna is basically the Avtari. So Krishna expands himself into Balram and Chaturvya and different forms of Vishnu forms. And it is said that when Krishna goes back to the spiritual world, then all these forms they merge back into Krishna. Okay. So similarly, these personalities they also have the power to expand themselves, just like Krishna does. Although they are not equal to Krishna, their expansion is dependent on the arrangement of the Supreme Lord. By his potency, by his power, by the Lord's power only, they can expand themselves in so many places. Okay, but the Lord expands out of his own will. So that is the difference between Lord and the Jiva. Because we are not God, we are all part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. So that way we are like, you can consider we are like the sun rays, and Supreme Lord is the sun. So what happens is, first case, there may be these may be the direct expansions of the personalities. So these expansions merge back. So it's one and the same personality. And in second scenario, these are two different personalities. So when it is said that the jiva merges into a particular personality, then their um, after that particular role is over. So for example, in the case of Bhishma Pitama, now when Vasu had merged in the body of Bhishma Pitama, after Bhishma Pitama passed away, the Vasu portion came out of Bhishma's body, and he again continued his post as a demigod. Whereas Bhishma, the eternal associate of the Lord, descending from the spiritual world, he went back to the spiritual world. Right? So these are two different personalities.
So Bhishma Pitama's okay.
Two different jivas. First scenario is the one and the same jiva. He is just expanding himself. It's the same jiva. Second scenario, these are two different jivas altogether. Now the second jiva, if that jiva can also, when that jiva is in the body of the eternal associate of the Lord, if that jiva also attains bhakti, then he can also go back to the spiritual world. But it will be two separate forms.
So the individuality is not lost, basically.
Yes, yeah. So that is not lost. So, anyways, coming to the point, that devotees, all these great devotees, they do not have any karma, and they do not suffer because of karma. Whereas we are not like the eternally liberated souls. We are not like pure souls coming from the spiritual world. We are in the material world since a long time. So we have been taking births multiple times because of our own karma. So it is rightly stated, then when the Lord tests a neophyte, it is for his purification. And when the Lord tests a pure devotee, it is for his glorification. So all these personalities from the scriptures, they are all eternal associates of the Lord. And that's why whenever there is the mention of suffering of these devotees, it is nowhere related to karma. It is because of the Lord wants to glorify them. So how does the Lord glorify someone? By giving distress, by his own arrangement, he will actually, like by his own arrangement, the Lord wants the devotees to undergo some kind of distress, so that mainly that is for two reasons. One is that it is for the devotee's glorification, because the devotee is showing in all circumstances, whenever there is distress, whenever there is suffering, the devotee is showing that it does not hinder him from the loving service of the Lord. So that is not an obstacle at all. So that's a test, basically. The Lord gives a test and you have to pass the test. Because everyone can love when we are in happiness. But when we really want to show our love to someone, and when we suffer for that, then only it shows that we truly love someone.
So it is like something akin to the greatness of a player. For example, I'm just trying to give an analogy. The greatness of a player is relished when he has an opposition of that great caliber. So he's tested on that, and then his greatness is truly appreciated, right? And so Lord wants his devotees' greatness to be appreciated. So then
Perfect.
those
Yeah.
conditions are there.
In fact, like for example, our defense forces, they they think that Pakistan is too low for them to fight. They do not give so much importance to Pakistan army because they know that they
Correct.
can do anything. They can only send terrorists and they can only fight from the back behind. They cannot openly declare and fight in a war. So what they can do is they can only fight from the back side, and that's why Indian army has no regard for such kind of army. Whereas the Indian army respects those army, those defense forces, which will actually fight with them. So earlier days also Kshatriyas were like that. If you challenge the Kshatriya one on one, they will appreciate that. So even though a Kshatriya will be defeated or he will be killed, or they will praise that particular opponent and say that he's gone to Swarga because at least he had the courage to fight. Whereas those Kshatriyas who just escaped from the battlefield because of fear, so they were cowards. So cowards do not attain any destination, neither in this world nor in Swarga. So, right, because they are running away from their duty. So it is like that. So similarly, you rightly pointed out that only when there is a challenge, when an obstacle, then the glory is truly revealed to us. The full glory is truly revealed to us. Otherwise, we will never know what kind of devotees that person is. Because everything is blissful, jolly, then that's not a great deal. But when real challenge will come, when a big challenge comes, then only we can identify and truly appreciate a great Vaishnava. So for the great souls, these are all glorification. So that is one reason. Second reason is that the Lord wants the um, devotees who are suffering from their karma to learn from these great souls. So they act as an example for us to follow. That's why the Lord arranges such kind of pastimes in his Leela. By the instrument of great souls, the Lord makes them suffer. He will put them into a situation where they experience a lot of distress, and through their example, we can follow and we can learn from them. So these are the two reasons why uh, the Lord makes
their stories,
great souls suffer.
their stories become our inspiration, actually.
Correct. Yeah, because we always are looking for some idol to worship, someone who is absolute. Like for us, he's like a ideal person. We want to imitate that person. We want to follow that person, and we require role models also. If there are no role models, how can we really understand what is the effect of bhakti? Whether bhakti really provides the desired result or not, or bhakti is just an imaginary thing. So we have to we should have role models in our life. Uh, these are living personalities whom we can see, observe, and we can learn from them. We can follow in their footsteps. So this is the cause of suffering for the great souls.
So these great souls, I have uh, there's a, this blends into another topic. Can I bring it up?
Yeah, yeah. And
That, yeah, unless you want to say something more on this.
yeah, I just wanted to, because I have not completed the, I have only spoken of
Okay.
devotees, but I have not stated the reason for the suffering of the conditioned souls. those who are undergoing their karma. So why do they suffer? Why the Lord makes them suffer? So, but I stated the reason in a very brief sentence, that the Lord tests a neophyte for their purification. So their suffering is, in terms of intensity, is very less compared to the intensity of the great soul suffering, because the conditioned soul, they cannot digest and they cannot take so much of suffering. If they undergo that much suffering, they will forget about the Lord also. And that's why one of our acharyas, Srila Jiva Goswami, says that the material world is a perfect balance of the uh, happiness as well as distress. See, if you study the universal structure according to the Bhagavatam, the uh, Bhumandal is at the center, and then we have the Swargloka at a higher realm above Bhumandal, whereas we have the Patal, which is below the Bhumandal at a lower realm, right? So logically, it makes sense that Bhumandal will not experience a lot of happiness, and it will not experience a lot of suffering, and that's why it is in the middle. And when you are in that position, then you can practice bhakti. It's very favorable to practice bhakti in that situation. Why? See, if there is only happiness, then you will not think about bhakti to the Lord. When there is only suffering, also you will not think about that. And that's why a balance has to be there, because only when there is going to be some suffering, you start questioning about life, and you start finding answers to all these questions, right? So that's why in the middle, it's a balance of happiness and distress. So, and that is why it is also mentioned in the scriptures that these all the devtas from the higher planets, they want to come to Bharat Loka, Bharat Varsha, is because they would like to uh, associate with devotees, and they would like to get the opportunity to practice bhakti in human form of life. So that's why this human form of life is extremely rare in Bhumandal, right? So happiness and distress is going to be there in the material world. Krishna has stamped in the Bhagavad Gita. He says that uh, Dukhalayam Ashashvatam, this place of misery and suffering, and we cannot do anything about it. So even if a person may not experience misery while living, but at least at the time of birth, at the time of death, and at the time of disease, he will experience suffering. And disease and all these things, it will definitely come. So that is imposed upon us, and it is
On the condition, on the conditioned soul.
correct. So now the question comes about why we suffer is because we make choices in the past lives. We suffer because of karma, and we have forgotten our previous life. So we are not able to trace out the reason for our suffering, right? But even if we suffer, still the Lord wants to give us concession, and that's why He says that Sarva dharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam praja aham tva sarva papebhyo mokshami ma sucha. So in the 18th chapter of the 66th verse of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that if someone is willing to surrender to me and abandon all types of dharma, right, then I will give him protection, I will give him complete shelter, I will destroy his sinful reactions. Moksha ami masucha. So do not worry. Okay, so devotees, karma is destroyed to a great extent by the personal intervention of the Lord when when a conditioned devotee tries to surrender to the Lord. So basically, the concept of token reaction. Instead of getting your hand cut, you just get a small cut on your hand while cutting some vegetables, or like something like that. So token reaction. Instead of getting the full reaction, you just get a token reaction for your karma, and that is because you have started rendering service to the Lord. So He will protect us from these kind of karmas.
Also, in the process, the jiva, when he experiences the difficulties and he realizes how he is able to overcome them due to uh, his involvement in devotional service, that brings about his own realization. So it is his own journey also. While he gets the opportunity to be glorified by Lord, but at the same time, it's his own journey that he is covering, and he's having that realization. The realization is dawning upon him, and I think that's his progress on the spiritual path as well.
Yeah, that's right. Because through suffering and through experiences, we realize a lot of things, and I think that will also improve our faith in the Lord. It will increase our faith. The conviction also that we have, that will be increased with time. I think, yeah, that's very important. We require these challenges so that we can grow from it. We can become mature, and we can get purified from it also, because uh, we have a lot of anarthas. Um, so see, it is not that, although the scriptures state and the Lord is saying that abandon all types of religion and surrender to me, I will square up all your sinful reactions. But we still see that there are devotees who are suffering to a good extent. It is not as good as the great Vaishnavas, pure devotees, but to a very good extent, as if it is like, as if you will see that the normal, the other people who are not willing to surrender to Lord, they are also suffering. Sometimes we see that devotees suffer more than them in terms of bodily uh, disease or other factors. So why this kind of thing is there? So that is actually what our great acharyas they say, is that the Lord wants to see, there are, first of all, we have to understand time scale. When the Lord says that, or the scripture state that all the reaction to the suffering is quickly destroyed, and one comes to me very quickly and easily. So what does it mean? It means that out of the millions of lifetimes that you had in the material world, with a long time span, and time span is actually according to the time scale of the demigods, because the scriptures, they do not just address the living entities in the material world, in Bhumandal, but it is also for the demigods. So the time scale, uh, when it is mentioned quickly, it is also relative in terms of the time of the demigods. So, for example, it is mentioned that one day in Swargaloka, the entire 24 hours in Swargaloka, is equivalent to 1 year of our earthly planet. And then it is also mentioned that one day of Brahma, just 12 hours of Brahma, is equal to 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas combined together. And this is just 12 hours. Multiply by 2 becomes entire one day of Brahma. Brahma lives for 100 years, and 1 year consists of almost 365 days. Is almost same as the time span that we spend here in the material world. So Brahma also spends that much time in his abode in Satyaloka, and that is 365 days, which is 1 year, and like that 1 year into 100. So 100 years of Brahma, 100 into, you can consider 365. 1 year consists of 365 days, and then one day is 2 times into 1,000 cycles of your yugas. So that is the time span of Brahmaji. So when the scriptures, they talk about you achieve the results very quickly, it it is also seen from that perspective. So from Brahma's point of view, if you attain the Lord in 3 lifetimes, what is the time frame for Brahma? It is a couple of moments only. So very quickly you have attained the Lord. For us, it may be a bit longer. I mean, if someone is very serious and dedicated, they can attain the Lord in 1 lifetime also, by the special mercy of the Acharya. But even if they take 3 lifetimes, that is also not a long process. It's a very short process. But for us, it may be a long process because we have to struggle through it. Right? So the first one is the time scale. Second one is that the consideration of offenses that we commit while practicing the path of bhakti. So the scriptures talk about offenses to the holy name and offenses to devotees. Then there are different offenses to the deities, offenses to the dham. Like that, there are different types of offenses. If you are committing these offenses while practicing bhakti, then the result is delayed. Second, these are two main things. And now the uh, another reason also given by the Acharya is that bhakti generally hides its glories. Bhakti will hide its glory. So it may seem that we are undergoing some karma, but actually it may not be the influence of karma. It may be the arrangement of the Lord, or it may be the arrangement of devotional service to the Lord. That's third thing. And so I would like to give an example to explain this. See, the body is also a result of our karma coming from the previous life. We attain a particular body, that's also because of our karma. Now, if you destroy all the karmas, then your body also gets destroyed. That means you die. And if you die, then where is the chance, the opportunity to perform bhakti to the Lord? So, some karma is kept, and that is called semblance of karma. That semblance of karma continues as long as we are in the material world, and through that, using that karma, we actually engage in the devotional service of the Lord. And using that body, we perfect our lives. It is similar to the biting of a snake whose poison has been removed. So when you remove the poison from the snake, even if the snake will bite you, you will feel pain for some time because of that biting. But because there is no poison, you will not die from that. Right? So similarly, these are the reasons. Okay. So the time scale, one we have to first understand. Time scale is important. Second is that offenses we commit in the process, and that will delay the result. And third is bhakti hides its glories. And the fourth is that there is a semblance of karma which is continuing for a devotee. Okay. So now there have been cases where a lot of devotees have got cancer. They have suffered at the last, they have suffered a lot during the last couple of years. And that is what our acharyas say, that basically it's a termination of their body. So basically, the Lord wants to take them back to Godhead. And that's why whatever the last trace of karma is there, it all is squared up. The Lord wants to completely, like for example, if a person has committed a lot of sinful activities, and because of that he's bound to suffer for next 1,000 lifetimes. But if by chance, by the association of devotees, by the mercy of devotees, if that person becomes a devotee in that life, or maybe in the next life, then the entire effect of the 999 lifetimes, that the reaction of that sinful activity is squared up. It is given as a token reaction in this one life. Everything is, uh, it's all going to be concentrated in one lifetime, and that is removed at that particular instant. That's why the devotee will probably experience that suffering. But after going through that intense suffering, he will straight away go back to Godhead. So the Lord basically wants to remove each and every trace of karma from that devotee. That is also possible. This is what our acharyas explain. So this is how we understand, because see, the problem is that this karma, law of karma is very complicated. You cannot understand so easily. And we cannot apply logic also sometimes. It may, because we are seeing from a very limited time perspective, but the Lord is seeing, see, it's very interesting. The Lord is always in present. We have a past, we have a future, we are currently in the present, right? But the Lord is never in the past, is never in the future. Is, for him, past and future are always present. Can you, do you understand this concept? So are you able to understand this? There is no past, there is no future. Everything is present for the Lord, because he is beyond the influence of time. Time is only in the material world. It's basically, time is recording the activities of all living entities. And that's why when we are transitioning from one state to another state, it is recording. And that recording basically, and because our body deteriorates with time, that's why we have a past and we have a future. So it's very important to understand this concept, that time is, uh, the cause for which we have past, present, future. Otherwise, for the Lord, everything is present. So whether we are transitioning from one state to another state, but the Lord is always fixed in one state, and that is present. Everything is present for the Lord. Uh, I think you got disconnected, Rajiv ji. I think you are back. Yeah, you had got disconnected.
My phone battery had become zero.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, okay. So I was sharing about how the Lord, for everything, I mean, we have a past, present, and future, but the Lord, for the Lord, it's all present.
All present. Correct.
Correct? Yeah. So yeah, so these are the reasons why conditioned souls, living entities who even become devotees, who try to become devotees, they suffer. But at the same time, it is all arranged by the Lord. I mean, the Lord is involved. His intervention is always there. Whereas for those who do not want the Lord in their lives, those who don't want bhakti in their lives, the Lord does not intervene because that particular soul does not want the Lord to intervene. So that's why karma is the driving factor for these kind of people. And Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita that these souls, they are going from one body to another body because of the influence of the modes of material nature. So because of their karma, they create a certain kind of mode of they are influenced by the particular mode of material nature, and that keeps them going from one body to another body in different lifetimes, unless and until they want to seek liberation or they want to come out of that state, they will keep changing different bodies, and they will be influenced by different modes of nature.
Right. Uh, so can I ask another question?
Yeah.
So now the topic is slightly changing here. So having been through the tough times when the devotee uh, has realizations, his faith, his bonding, his presence, his relationship with the Lord has become even more firm. Uh, his natural inclination would be to transcend the material world. Obviously, that would have elevated him to a certain extent. But we find that as the devotees are getting more and more elevated, they somehow get into this, instead of being disconnected from materialism, you find that they are more and more getting involved in collecting funds, going around asking for funds. So the normal person feels that the devotee is anchoring too much in the material, whereas he should be actually disconnected from the world and he should be uh, in his own the transcendental intoxication of being with the Lord. Why is he so still hankering for funds all the time, donations and funds? I mean, how do you reconcile with that?
Yeah. So first of all, the devotees, they are asking funds for the service of the Lord, and this is one form of service to the Lord. Now, see, there are people who say that if the Lord has everything, why we have to worship him in the temple in a grand manner? Why we have to offer him? Why we have to offer everything to him? Uh,
Correct.
so, and then why do we require big temples? We can donate that money for poor and needy people and all that stuff. So this is a very frequently
Absolutely.
asked doubt. But see, the reality is that God is a person. That we have to understand. So when we talk about person, then there has to be a reciprocation of service. There has to be exchange of service. Otherwise, what is the need of a person? When you talk about a person, then you want to love that person. And when you want to love the person, you want to serve that person. So if there are no service opportunity for us, then how can we prove our love to the Lord? It's not just taking from the Lord always. It's also give and take relationship. I mean, not that we are asking from the Lord. Just because we are giving to the Lord, it does not mean that we also say that, well, I have given you, now you give me. It's not give and take like that, but give and take in the sense that We give, we serve the Lord, and then He reciprocates according to the capacity in which we give to Him. So that becomes a give and take relationship. And in any relation, you have that relationship, you have that dynamics, right? Your friends, your wife, your parents, your children, with everyone you have that relationship. If you cannot help your friend, if you cannot serve your friend, your relatives, then what kind of relative you are? That means you just want to take from them, you don't want to give them something in return. So then what are the avenues for giving to the Lord? How can we give to the Lord? What can we give to the Lord? And that is all described in the scriptures. So like a person, like we have our own flavors, our own desires, our own choice. We like certain things, we do not like certain things. Similarly, the Lord has his own likes and dislikes, which is very natural for a personality. And that's how we serve the Lord. So now the question is that why do we have to give so much to the Lord when He already has so much? So it is not like that. Like for example, um, when a rich king, the king has everything in his palace. He can achieve anything by his opulence and by his ruling over his subjects. He can achieve anything what he wants. But when the son, by his own effort, when he gives something, a very big opulence to the king will accept it. The son will never think that you already have such opulence. Why should I give you the same thing? You are already having that, and you don't need it. Why should I give you? The son never thinks like that. Someone who loves a person will never think like that. They just want to serve. So out of greatness, or out of gratitude, they want to. If you love someone very dearly, you want to give that person the best thing that you can give. And if you have wealth, you give wealth to the in exchange. And if you are intelligent, you use your intelligence to serve that person. So whatever best ability you have, you engage that in the loving service of that person. So that way, the uh, irrespective of whether he's a king or whether he's a poor man, he's going to accept it. That's why Krishna says in the Gita also, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam. Right? He's setting the minimum standard so that people don't doubt about his demanding for a very high opulence. He's saying that don't worry, if a poor person is also there, all types of people or everyone can actually offer me some service. And at the least, what you can do is, if you don't have any of these opulences, then patram, pushpam, phalam, toyam. That patram is leaf, pushpam is fruit, a flower, and phalam is fruit. Anyone can get and offer it to the Lord. Such a simple thing. And then water also one can offer. Tulsi also one can offer. So Lord accepts that with devotion. So basically, the Lord is Saragrahi and he's also Bhavgrahi. Now, what does it mean? So there is one particular example that Srila Prabhupada gives in this connection. So one time, in the pastime of Srila Prabhupada, we see how Prabhupada sets an example. So one time, one rich person came to Prabhupada and he gave like around 1 or 2 lakh rupees to Prabhupada. But Prabhupada did not even look at him and he just asked his disciple to take the offering, and then he did not even look that person, that rich person, and he went. And then after some time, a small girl came and she had a few pennies in her hand. So she gave everything to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada accepted that offering with a loving smile and encouraged her. So this disciple asked Prabhupada, Prabhupada, when the rich person came, you did not even look at him. You did not even acknowledge his, uh, you know, his donation, but here this small girl is giving only a few pennies, and you such nicely and lovingly and kindly you reciprocated with her. So Prabhupada said that this person actually is giving me just 1% of his income, and this small girl, she had whatever pennies she had. If she had, like, say, 10 pennies, she gave all of them to me. She did not take away one penny and give it to me. She gave all the pennies she had, she gave it to me. So that is the meaning of rule, true love. So the Lord is basically seeing the essence of your devotion, and He's also seeing the bhav of that. You may externally do some activity, but your heart is not there. Then the effect is not there. The Lord is not going to appreciate. So He may accept, but He will not be fully satisfied with your offering. But when you give everything you have to the Lord, then obviously, so a poor man, if he has 10 rupees, but if he offers 10 rupees to the Lord, that 10 rupees is like billions of dollars for the Lord. But a billionaire, if he gives 100 rupees, then that, what is the value of that? So the Lord knows how much you have and how much you can, how much you give. Right? So, anyways, uh, so that's why the Lord is giving the devotees the service opportunity to serve the, like, His service He's giving as an opportunity, and that's why the devotees go and they ask for donations. At the same time, there is also the principle that we depend on the Lord more rather than people's contribution, because ultimately the higher principle is that everything is the opulence of the Supreme Lord, and everything has to be engaged in His service, because He is the provider of everyone. Even the person who has become rich, he may be a Nastik or Astik, but the Lord has given him everything, all the opulences. Without the sanction of Lord, nothing, he cannot get anything. So whatever opulence he has got, it's only because that the Lord has sanctioned. And that's why, more than the donation of the person, a devotee should understand that they have to be dependent on the Lord's arrangement. So they have to be dependent on the Lord. The final factor, the final dependence has to be on the Lord. Although they may ask for donations, they may insist, or they may also follow up with the person, because they are trying their best. They have to try their best. But ultimately, they should know by heart that the Lord is the ultimate giver. So that's why, again, the same principle the Bhagavad Gita states, Karmenya ma phaleshu kadachana. You should not be entitled to the fruits of the activities. You just do your duty and karma. Like that. Now, let's assume the Lord provides on His own. He will, everything He will arrange by His own self. Then what will the devotees do? What is there for the devotees to do? How can the devotees serve the Lord? There is also another question, that generally these leftists, they ask these kind of questions. They try to convert the Hindus by saying that, अरे आपके भगवान तो कुछ नहीं करते हैं, मंदिर में जाके उनकी मूर्तियां लोग चुरा के लेके जाते हैं, आपके भगवान क्या झक मारते हैं? So your Lord is not doing anything. If he is truly the Lord, he should protect himself. But we are seeing that there are thieves who are coming and they are looting the temple's money, and they are also stealing the deities. Some deities are golden, so they are stealing the deities and they are going away. And then in the past, we have seen so many, all these people like Aurangzeb, they destroyed so many temples and they took so much of wealth. So they will say that, what happened to the Lord? If he is the Lord, he is a supreme controller, he should have protected himself. He does not have the power to protect himself. But the real answer is that the Lord has appeared in the form of deity so that the devotees can take care of that deity. That is the purpose of deity worship. The Lord does not appear in Kali Yuga, but he has very kindly appeared in the form of a deity so that we worship the Lord, we serve the Lord, we protect the Lord. So it is the responsibility of the devotee. If everything the Lord does, then what the devotees they are going to do? Everything is done by the Lord. What devotees, they will only do bhajan, that's it. Why they need to do any kind of preaching also? Just do bhajan. But the Lord knows that in Kali Yuga, you cannot even do bhajan. You cannot even sit 24 hours a day. What to speak about 24 hours? Can you sit for even 4 to 5 hours? Very attentively, can you sit for 4 to 5 hours and chant the holy name? As soon as you start chanting the holy name, one hand you have your chanting beads, another hand you have your phone, and you have your WhatsApp or Insta or Facebook, and you are always watching, and that is giving you encouragement in your chanting. So this kind of chanting is offensive chanting actually. It's inattentive chanting. So in Kali Yuga, what kind of bhajan can we do? And that's why engaging of physical senses, external activity is very important in Kali Yuga. So this is a service opportunity for us. This is how the Lord has made arrangement for us. And this is the reason why devotees, they ask for donations. But yeah, of course, devotees should not be dependent, and they should not think that these people from whom they are asking donations, they are the ultimate, you know, like uh, we have to be dependent on them. No, we should not be dependent on them. We should be dependent on the Lord's will finally. That has to be the intention of the devotees. I mean, it should be that spirit has to be there. So, I mean, there are pure Vaishnavas who are still living in different parts of the world. Just by their bhajan, they get everything at one place. Okay. Even Srila Prabhupada, if he wanted, he could have, without, like, for example, Srila Prabhupada one time said that his Param Guru, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, he gave the entire credit to his Param Guru, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He said that if Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur had wanted, he would have made the entire world Krishna conscious. But he left that task for me so that I get the opportunity to serve. So just by, in fact, when Bhaktivinoda Thakur was in Jagannath Puri, so that time he was, and he had taken renunciation. So he was only chanting the holy names of the Lord, but he was also feeling guilt in his heart that I have stopped preaching. I'm not doing any prachar. But his chanting was so pure. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared to him, and Mahaprabhu told him that you just sit here, you just chant the holy name, and by your potency, by your chanting, the holy name will spread throughout the world. So that pure chanting effect we can see, but that pure chanting effect, the spread of the holy name happened by the instrument of Srila Prabhupada. So that's why Prabhupada also was humble. Bhaktivinoda Thakur also was humble. Prabhupada gave credit to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and here Prabhupada says that Bhaktivinoda Thakur wants to give credit to him. So similarly, Prabhupada engaged us, all of his disciples, followers, for many services, so that we can get the benefit, we can get the credit of it. At least we are doing service, so by that service we can get the mercy of the Lord, and then we can become pure devotees. Right? So this is how we understand. Any like more doubts or questions? I think you're muted. You're muted.
Sorry. So I was saying, no, that's fine. It settles the subject matter.
Yeah. So, I mean, the problem is that people do not take in terms of a person, God as a person, and that's why all these things are happening, because more than a person, they think God is the ultimate controller and the supreme controller. So God, He's having all the opulences. Why then we have to do something for the Lord, or create big palaces and temples and all that, and spend so much money for God and all like that. But it also satisfies one very important principle that God is basically the root of the tree. By watering the root of the tree, every flower, fruit, branch, leaf, everything is nourished. But if you separate, try to satisfy individually all these things, then finally they will dry up, right? So similarly, um, when people become God conscious and when they uh, take God in center of their lives, then naturally everyone is satisfied and they are nourished by that. But if we try to do some social welfare activity, try to serve humanity, but disregard God, do not serve God, do not bring Father into the center, our real Father into center. See, because the entire ecosystem works on the principle of gratitude. And that gratitude, basically, it starts with one's parents. Generally, we give gratitude to parents. In India, this is a very common thing. Everyone wants to give credit to their parents. Generally, people they have a lot of regards and respect for their parents. So it is natural. The parents give that, they transfer that worship or respect to their parents, because they also feel gratitude towards their parents, and so their parents give gratitude to their parents. So basically, a son, father, father to grandfather, grandfather to great grandfather, like that. It has to go to God ultimately, because all of these personalities, they have, they are what? They are ultimately the children of God. So the source is God. So you'll see that the gratitude has to shift to the center. But people become so um, like biased that they just want to worship their family, and they completely disregard others in the family. That's why we have this mentality that everyone is like, the, I mean, when we talk about God being the father of everyone, then we realize that we are part and parcel, we are brothers and sisters. But when we neglect God, when we uh, remove Him from the center, then it's a biased family. So then you only think about your family lineage. And that too also does not make sense, because you have multiple lifetimes. In multiple lifetimes, you had multiple family lineages, different. So it's just in one lifetime you are able to remember your family, but in the next life, you'll forget your family lineage in this life, and you will worship some other family lineage only. So everything works on the principle of gratitude. And when we have real gratitude, true gratitude, then God has to be there in the center. Otherwise, what we are saying is God is there, but He's not there. So, like, people say that हम भगवान को मानते हैं, लेकिन भगवान की बातों में विश्वास नहीं है, भगवान को नहीं, भगवान की बातों को नहीं मानते हम. So it's a very contradictory thing. भगवान है, लेकिन भगवान है, उसका फायदा क्या है? If God is there, but if God is not conveying anything, if not saying anything, if not respiting, what is the use of God? You remove God from the picture. What is the use of God? Why to bring God in between? Just for namesake, that uh, okay, God is there. We want to worship God. But then who is accepting your worship? And why He has created you? Why you are there in the material world? Why karma is there? Why we are suffering? So answers to all these questions, it lies with God only. No one is going to answer your questions. No one has the capacity to answer a question. Scriptures are basically talking about God only. So who answers your questions? So it's like that. So yeah, I mean, God is a person ultimately. This we have to understand. And when you talk about person, then we want to give best to the Lord, because we realize what the Lord has done for us since so many lifetimes. forget about so many lifetimes also. In this life also, if we sincerely practice devotion, then we can see the arrangement of Lord, we can see the restoration of Lord in our lives. And then naturally we are inspired to serve voluntarily. Because our faith and conviction increases that actually he is truly there, he is truly present as a person. And that's how we increase our service to the Lord, like that. And then by serving him, everyone is satisfied because he's the absolute controller, he's the ultimate controller. So watering the root of the tree will nourish everyone. People may not realize that, but I think this trend is now very I can say that it is clearly observed, especially when the BJP government has, taken up the charge since 2014 till now. We are seeing one thing, that Sanatan Dharma is coming gradually. It is coming to the center, and because of that, a lot of people are happy also. Our culture, our values, the significance and the importance of the Lord in our life, the respect that we have for the Lord, that is all coming gradually.
Actually, what the BJP government did was they made mobile very easily accessible. They reduced the rates, and with that, the social media content has gone up so high, and everybody is now putting everything in social media. And one of the major chunk is Sanatan Dharma. So Sanatan Dharma has, in that manner, become accessible to everyone.
Correct. Yeah.
Just by the thing coming down, the mobile rates coming down, and this platform is opened up for the billions and billions of.
Exactly.
So the water finds its own level, right? So similarly now, Sanatan is therefore flourishing in that sense.
And people find it very tangible, very practical, because what the Sanatan Dharma offers is, it is basically taking responsibility for our own karma, not to blame and not to punish others for our karma, and as well as not to become fanatics like other religions. That we appreciate whoever loves God, we appreciate them, respect them, and we don't create violence, because violence is not sanctioned. Only when dharma has to be protected, when it has to be protected from people who are adharmic, that time only we can employ violence. But others, like normally, violence is not at all sanctioned in the scriptures. Every living entity has the right to live, and we have to respect that. So all these teachings are there in the Sanatan Dharma. Not just that, but even how to live life, the principles, the morals, the ethics. When you implement in your life, then you can actually progress very nicely in your material activities also. So people are actually seeing these things now. So they are taking help of Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, Mahabharata, lessons from them, all these scriptures, and they gradually they are understanding the importance of the values. So such characters of, like great characters we had in the past. All these characters which are described in scriptures, we derive so much lessons from them. How to live in this material world, how to deal with people, how to not be influenced by anxiety, distress, like that. So it's basically giving us a lot of depth in our Sanatan Dharma, and that is helping us to overcome all these challenges in life, all these different types of anxieties. It also teaches us how to become gradually detached. We should not be attached or possessive of things in the material world. So many lessons are learned from, so that's why many of the universities and colleges and schools, they are also implementing teachings of Gita or Ramayana. They have made it mandatory also in some colleges, so that we can learn from all these great characters how to live life, how to deal with problems, challenging situations, like that. Yeah, you are muted.
Yes, so I was just wanting to thank you for addressing, elaborating deeply on these good subject matters.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, Rajiv, so much. And I thank the audience also for joining us. Hopefully, we'll come up with a new topic next time. So, thank you all very
Yes,
much. Hare Krishna.
thank you. Hare Krishna.